In a matter of days, my body collapsed. The doctors had no hope, telling my family I wouldn't survive. On Easter morning, something incredible happened. All my organs started working again. It was as if I had been resurrected. The story you're about to hear is a true account. The names of characters and places have been changed to preserve the privacy of its authors. If you believe in miracles or have experienced one, leave your opinion in the comments and subscribe. I'll never forget that day. It was a Tuesday like any other, or at least that's what I thought. My daughter and I had decided to do some repairs at her rental property. The sun was shining brightly, but something didn't feel right. "Dad, are you okay?" my daughter asked, noticing that I had stopped in the middle of a simple task. Yes, just a bit tired," I replied, trying not to worry her. But the truth is that I felt exhausted, as if I had run a marathon. We decided to finish early that day. On the way back home, an uncomfortable silence filled the car. We both knew something wasn't right, but neither wanted to admit it. When we got home, my wife Sarah greeted us with a smile that soon faded when she saw us. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, half joking, half worried. "It's nothing, honey," I tried to reassure her. But at that moment, a delicious smell should have come from the kitchen. Or should have. "Are you cooking something?" I asked, confused. Sarah looked at me strangely. "Randy, I've been preparing your favorite pasta sauce all afternoon. Can't you smell it?" A chill ran down my spine. I looked at my daughter and saw the same fear reflected in her eyes. "Dad, I can't smell anything either," she confessed. The following days were a slow-motion nightmare. The fever began, mild at first, but persistent. Taste joined smell in its sudden disappearance. And then came the cough, a dry cough that seemed to want to tear my lungs out. "We should go to the hospital," Sarah insisted, increasingly worried. "It's not necessary, it's just a strong flu," I would respond, stubborn as always. But deep down, an icy fear began to grow. The news wouldn't stop talking about a new, deadly virus that was ravaging the world. Could it be? One morning, my eldest daughter, Hannah, came to visit us. As soon as she saw me, her face transformed. "Dad, you're gray," she said, with a voice that didn't hide her terror. I tried to joke, tell her she was exaggerating, but the words drowned in a coughing fit that left me breathless. "That's it," Hannah declared with a firmness that admitted no reply. "We're going to the hospital right now." The car ride was a blur of distorted lights and sounds. My mind floated between consciousness and feverish stupor. I vaguely remember arriving at the hospital, the blinding lights of the emergency room. "I'm sorry, miss, but you can't come in," I heard someone say. "The COVID rules are very strict." COVID. The word felt like a death sentence. "Dad," Hannah shouted from somewhere far away. "I'll wait in the car. I love you." I turned with difficulty, my lungs burning with each breath. "I love you, honey. See you soon," I managed to say before the doors closed behind me. Those were the last words I would say to my family for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of hell, of fighting between life and death. 6 weeks that would change my life forever. As they took me to an isolation room, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if this is the last time I see my family? Fear invaded me, but I had no strength to fight. I gave myself over to the doctor's hands, praying for a miracle I didn't even know if I deserved. What would happen in the following weeks would challenge everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what lies beyond. But at that moment, as darkness enveloped me, I could only think of one thing: survival. The diagnosis came like a devastating blow. COVID-19 positive. The doctor's words echoed in my head like an endless echo, while my world crumbled around me. "Mr. Schaefer," said the doctor, his voice muffled by the protective equipment, "your condition is critical. We need to admit you to intensive care immediately." I tried to speak, to ask about my family, but my voice drowned in a violent coughing fit. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, and panic took over. The following days were a whirlwind of pain and confusion. My body, which had always been strong and resilient, was now betraying me in every possible way. Each breath was a struggle, each heartbeat a monumental effort. "His kidneys are failing," I heard a nurse say in what seemed like a distant dream, "We need to start dialysis immediately." The hum of machines became the soundtrack of my existence. Tubes and cables came out of my body as if I were a macabre puppet. Reality and nightmares merged into a kaleidoscope of terror and suffering. One night, or maybe it was day, time had lost all meaning. I felt my heart racing alarmingly. The pain in my chest was unbearable. "Code Blue," someone shouted. "His left ventricle is failing." Through the haze of pain, I could see doctors and nurses running around me, their voices urgent and scared. "He's bleeding internally," said one. "The liver is inflamed," added another. "All his organs are failing," concluded a voice that sounded defeated. At that moment, I had surprising clarity. I saw my wife Sarah, my daughters, my grandchildren. Their faces passed before my eyes like a fast-forward movie. Was this the end? Would it all end like this? No. I thought with a determination I didn't know I still possessed. I can't give up. Not now. But my body had other plans. Breathing became increasingly difficult, like I was trying to breathe through a straw. The doctors decided it was time to intubate me. "Mr. Schaefer," said the doctor, leaning close to my ear, "we're going to put you in an induced coma. We need your body to rest so it can fight the virus." I wanted to protest, tell them no, that I had to stay awake, that I had to fight. But before I could form the words, I felt the cold of the medication running through my veins, and darkness enveloped me. 31 days. 31 days I was suspended between life and death. My body an empty shell, connected to machines that did the work my organs could no longer perform. During that time, my family fought their own battle outside the hospital walls. My daughter Lisa, a nurse by profession, became my tireless advocate. "You can't give up," she would tell the doctors day after day. "My father is a fighter. We'll find a way." But even Lisa, with all her knowledge and determination, knew the odds were against us. The doctors had been clear. They didn't expect me to survive. "I'm sorry," the chief physician said to my family in a video call. His voice was heavy with regret. "We've done everything in our power, but the damage is extensive. You should prepare for the worst." I imagine the pain in Sarah's eyes, my daughter's tears, the disbelief on my grandchildren's faces. How could they accept that their father, their grandfather, the man who had always been the pillar of the family, was about to disappear? But fate, or perhaps something bigger than all of us, had other plans. On day 31 of my coma, when the doctors were about to have the conversation with my family, something inexplicable happened. My lungs, which had been so damaged they could barely function, began showing signs of improvement. It's impossible," muttered a doctor, checking my x-rays over and over. Slowly, as if my body had suddenly remembered how to function, my organs began to recover. My heart returned to its normal size, my kidneys resumed their function, my liver stopped bleeding. The doctors were astonished. Some spoke of a medical miracle, others sought scientific explanations. But for me, floating in that space between life and death, something else was happening. Something that would change my understanding of the world forever. While my body fought to survive in the physical world, my mind, my soul, or whatever we are beyond our flesh and bones, was embarking on an extraordinary journey. A journey that would take me to the limits of existence and back, transforming me in the process. But that's another story, one that was yet to be discovered when, against all odds, I opened my eyes and took my first conscious breath in more than a month. A story that would change not only my life, but the lives of all those around me. When I opened my eyes after 31 days in a coma, the world had changed. Or maybe it was I who had changed. The first thing I saw was my daughter Lisa's face, covered by a mask, but with eyes that shone with joy and amazement. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're back." I wanted to speak, but my throat was raw from the breathing tube. Lisa explained what had happened, how the doctors had lost hope, how my family had refused to give up. "It was the plasma, Dad," Lisa said, her eyes full of tears. "The convalescent plasma saved your life." Slowly, like pieces of a puzzle, the story began to take shape. My family, led by Lisa, had waged an epic battle against time, bureaucracy, and hopelessness. "The doctors told us you were dying," Lisa explained, "that there was nothing more they could do. But I refused to accept it. I knew there had to be something, anything." Lisa told me how she had contacted a friend from nursing school, whose father was an infectious disease specialist. "She told me that convalescent plasma might be your only hope," Lisa continued. "But when we proposed it to the hospital, they told us it was too experimental, that maybe in a few months they would consider it." The frustration in Lisa's voice was palpable. "I told them we didn't have months, that in a matter of days you would be—" Her voice broke, unable to finish the sentence. I imagined the scene. My daughter, normally so composed, confronting a group of doctors and hospital administrators, her voice trembling with emotion but firm in her determination. "If you can get it," they finally told her, "we'll consider using it." That's when my daughters decided to take matters into their own hands. Hannah, my middle daughter, turned to social media. With Lisa's help, they created a post that went viral in a matter of hours. "My father is dying from COVID-19, the post said. "We need convalescent plasma donors. Please help us save him." The response was overwhelming. Within hours, hundreds of people volunteered. Strangers willing to travel miles to donate their plasma, to save the life of a man they had never met. "It was amazing, Dad," said Hannah, joining the conversation. "People are truly wonderful when given the chance to help, but finding willing donors was only half the battle. They needed to find someone compatible and fast. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack," Lisa explained. "We had to find someone who had had COVID-19, had fully recovered, and was compatible with you. And all this in a matter of days. When it seemed time was running out, the impossible happened. A young pastor from a church in Pensacola, just 30 minutes away, turned out to be compatible. When we got the call, we couldn't believe it," said Hannah, her eyes shining as she remembered the moment. "It was as if heaven had sent us an angel." The young pastor, whose name I never knew, didn't hesitate for a second. He showed up at the hospital the next day, ready to donate his plasma. He said it was the least he could do, Lisa recalled, that if God had given him the opportunity to save a life, he couldn't refuse. The treatment began immediately. Drop by drop, the antibody-rich plasma began to flow through my veins. And then, on Easter morning, what many would call a miracle happened. "Your lungs started to improve," Lisa explained, her voice full of wonder even weeks later. "Overnight. It was as if your body had remembered how to fight. In a matter of days, my organs began to recover. My heart returned to its normal size, my kidneys resumed their function, my liver stopped bleeding." The doctors were astounded. "I've never seen anything like it," one of the doctors confessed. "It's as if you were resurrected." As Lisa and Hannah told me this incredible story, I couldn't help but feel a mix of overwhelming emotions. Gratitude toward my family for their tireless fight, amazement at the kindness of so many strangers, and a deep sense that I had witnessed something bigger than myself. "Why me?" I asked in a hoarse whisper. "Why was I saved when so many others didn't make it?" Lisa took my hand, her eyes full of tears. "I don't know, Dad, but I'm grateful you're here. We all are." As I lay there, regaining strength day by day, I couldn't stop thinking about the journey I had undertaken. A journey that had taken me to the edge of death and back. A journey that, as I would soon discover, had been much more than a battle against a virus. It had been a journey to the very heart of existence, and it was about to change my life forever. While my body struggled to survive in the intensive care unit, my mind, or perhaps my soul, embarked on a journey that defies all logical explanation. At first, I hesitated to share this experience, fearing they would take me for crazy or that it was a product of medication. But the experience was so real, so profound, that I cannot and do not want to deny it. "Lisa," I said to my daughter a few days after waking from the coma, "I need to tell you something, but I don't know how to start." Lisa looked at me curiously. "What is it, Dad? You can tell me anything." I took a deep breath, still painful from the time I spent intubated. "While I was in a coma, I traveled." "You traveled?" Lisa asked, confused. "You mean you dreamed?" I shook my head. "No, it wasn't a dream. I recognize dreams, I even had hallucinations that I can distinguish. This was different, more real than anything I've ever experienced. I told Lisa about the dark tunnel I traveled through, how it was filled with an indescribable warmth and love. I told her about the peace I felt, a tranquility I had never experienced before in my life. It was as if my consciousness had separated from my body, I explained. I had no physical form, but still, it was me. Lisa listened attentively, her eyes wide with amazement. I described how at the end of the tunnel, I emerged in a golden city of incomparable beauty. The buildings rose toward the sky, Lisa. They were bright golden, with opaque windows. The sky. Oh, the sky was a blue I've never seen on Earth. As I spoke, the memories flowed with surprising clarity. I told her about the parks I saw, vibrant green and full of beautiful flowers. I told her about the children playing, their laughter resonating in the air with pure joy. At one point, I continued, I felt lost. I sat on what seemed like a sidewalk, surrounded by movement but feeling alone and scared. I shouted for help, but no one stopped. Lisa squeezed my hand, her eyes full of tears. "Oh, Dad." But then, I said, my voice trembling with emotion, I saw a great staircase rising toward the sky. I thought if I reached it, someone might find me. I told her how, just as I was heading toward the staircase, I heard a voice calling my name. I turned and saw a man with long white hair and beard, dressed in a bright white robe. He took me from the staircase and I returned to darkness. Lisa was silent, processing everything I was telling her. I continued telling her about the dirt path I walked afterward, bordered by beautiful flowers and trees, with a winding river on one side. A small child appeared, I said. He was very excited, shouting, "Follow me! Follow me!" He took me to a beautiful room and told me to wait there. I described how I could see the river from the room, how I felt at peace watching it flow in the distance. But then the child returned and told me I had to leave. I didn't want to, Lisa. I felt so at peace, so at home. But he insisted that my room wasn't ready, that I had to go. Lisa was openly crying now, holding my hand tightly. "Dad, that sounds incredible." "There's more," I said softly. I told her about the void I found myself in afterward, surrounded by passing orbs of light. I told her about the guide I felt at my side, guiding me through that void. "I saw your grandmother," I told Lisa, seeing how her eyes opened in surprise. She was sitting, very straight and formal, as always. She looked about 30 years old. I shouted at her, but she didn't recognize me. I continued telling her about the lights I saw in the distance, how I saw my father, my mother, and my sister. They were there, Lisa, as real as you are now. Finally, I told her about the orb of light that quickly approached me. For a brief moment, it materialized into a human face, I explained. It gave me a message for someone named Madison in a salon. It said her grandfather was okay. Lisa was stunned. "Dad, do you know anyone named Madison?" I shook my head. "No, I don't know any Madison. But this man, whoever he was, showed me how he made red, white, and blue ribbons and American flags. I instantly knew he was a veteran. When I finished my story, silence filled the room. Lisa looked at me with a mixture of amazement, confusion, and something that seemed to be hope. "Dad," she finally said, "this is incredible. I don't know what to say." "I know," I replied. "I don't know what to think about all this either. But I know it was real, Lisa. More real than anything I've ever experienced in my life." As I lay there, reliving that extraordinary experience, I felt a deep sense of peace. I knew that what I had experienced would change my life forever. And although I didn't fully understand what it all meant, I knew it had a purpose. I had a message to deliver, a story to tell. And somehow, I knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger journey. Weeks passed before I could leave the hospital. Recovery was slow and painful, but each day I felt stronger, more alive. However, there was something that wouldn't leave me in peace. The message for Madison. Who was she? How could I find her? One day, while rummaging through a drawer in my dresser, I found something unexpected, a business card from a local barbershop. I didn't remember saving it, but something told me it was important. Lisa, I called to my daughter, who was in the kitchen. Can you call this place and ask if they're open? I need a haircut. Lisa took the card and looked at me curiously. Where did you get this, Dad? I found it in the drawer, I replied. Could you call, please? Lisa nodded and left the room. A few minutes later, she returned with a strange expression on her face. She began asking me questions quickly. Where did you get this card? How long have you had it? Where exactly did you find it? Confused by her sudden interrogation, I answered as best I could. Lisa, what's going on? Why so many questions? Her response left me breathless. Dad, I think we found your Madison. My heart began to beat hard. Could it be? After all this time? Make the appointment, I told Lisa, my voice trembling with emotion and nervousness. The day of the appointment came faster than I expected. My daughter took me to the barber shop, helping me walk, as I was still weak. When we entered, a young woman approached us with a kind smile. Hi, I'm Madison, she said. I believe I have an appointment with you. I felt the air leave my lungs. It was her, the Madison from the message. As I sat in the barber's chair, my mind was spinning. How was I going to approach this? Would she believe me? Would she think I was crazy? Madison, I began, my voice trembling. May I ask you some personal questions? She nodded, a bit surprised but open. Sure, go ahead. Your grandparents, are they alive? I saw the surprise in her eyes, followed by a shadow of sadness. No, my favorite grandfather passed away less than a year ago. My heart raced. Was he a veteran? Madison's eyes opened wide. Yes, he served in the army. He was in Vietnam. How did you know? I took a deep breath. It was now or never. Madison, this is going to sound strange, but I think your grandfather came to me with a message for you. I told her about my near-death experience, about the man who appeared to me and the message he gave me. As I spoke, I saw how tears began to form in Madison's eyes. He said to tell you that he's okay. I concluded softly. Madison brought a hand to her mouth, stifling a sob. It can't be. How is this possible? I continued, feeling that I should share everything. He also showed me a white porch. Does that mean anything to you? Madison took a step back, her eyes full of wonder and tears. It was his house in Iowa. He had a white porch where he loved to sit after retiring. He would talk to everyone who passed by. My heart was beating hard. Every detail fit. Madison, he also showed me something about making red, white, and blue ribbons and American flags. Does that have any meaning? Tears were flowing freely down Madison's cheeks now. Every Veterans Day, the whole family would go to the American Legion to support him. We would make red, white, and blue ribbons and American flags for the veterans' graves. Silence filled the barber shop. Madison looked at me with a mixture of wonder, gratitude, and something that seemed to be relief. How? How is this possible? She whispered. I don't know, I replied honestly. I just know your grandfather wanted you to know that he's okay, that you shouldn't worry about him. Madison came closer and, to my surprise, hugged me tightly. Thank you, she sobbed. You have no idea what this means to me. As I hugged her back, I felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. I understood why I had survived, why I had been given this second chance. It wasn't just for me, it was for people like Madison, to bring comfort and hope to those who had lost their loved ones. That afternoon, as Madison cut my hair between tears and laughter, sharing stories about her grandfather, I knew my life had changed forever. I had witnessed something beyond this world, and now I had the responsibility to share that message of love and hope with others. The months following my encounter with Madison were a whirlwind of emotions and discoveries. My near-death experience and the message I had delivered had become the center of my life, giving me a new purpose I never would have imagined. At first, I felt overwhelmed. How could I process everything I had experienced? How could I explain it to others without seeming crazy? But with the unconditional support of my family, especially Lisa, I began to take small steps forward. Dad, Lisa told me one afternoon as we were having coffee on the porch, I think you should share your story with more people. It could help a lot of people. I looked at my daughter, surprised by her suggestion. You think so? Won't they think I've lost my mind? Lisa smiled softly. Some might, but others will find comfort in your words. Think about Madison, about how much it meant to her. So, with my family's encouragement, I began to share my experience. At first, only with close friends and in small groups at the local church. To my surprise, the response was overwhelmingly positive. People were fascinated, moved, and many found hope in my words. One day, I received an unexpected call. It was the pastor of a church in the neighboring town. I've heard about your experience, he told me. I was wondering if you would be willing to share it with our congregation. I accepted, nervous but excited. The day of the talk, the church was full. As I shared my story, I saw tears in many eyes. At the end, a long line of people formed to talk to me. Some wanted to ask questions, others simply to thank me. An elderly woman approached me, her eyes bright with emotion. Thank you, she said, taking my hands in hers. I've been mourning my husband for years, but your words have given me peace. Now I know he's okay. These experiences made me realize that I had a responsibility. I hadn't just survived, but I had returned with a message of hope and love that needed to be shared. Over time, my story spread beyond local churches. I was invited to speak at hospitals, hospice centers, and even at a conference about near-death experiences. Every time I shared my story, I felt I was fulfilling the purpose for which I had been given this second chance. However, not everything was easy. There were skeptics, of course. Some accused me of making up the story, others suggested it had all been a medication-induced hallucination. But I learned not to let these voices discourage me. I knew what I had experienced, and I knew the positive impact it was having on others' lives. One day, while speaking at a support group for grieving people, a young woman approached me after the session. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was a spark of hope in them. My brother died 6 months ago, she told me. Since then, I've been struggling with depression. But your story, it has given me hope. It has made me believe that maybe, just maybe, my brother is in a better place. I took her hands in mine, feeling a deep connection with her pain and hope. Your brother is okay, I said with conviction, and he loves you more than you can imagine. I saw how her shoulders relaxed, as if a great weight had been lifted from them. At that moment, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I needed to do. With the passage of time, my experience became more than a personal story. It became a beacon of hope for those struggling with loss and grief. I wrote a book, Beyond the Threshold, which became an unexpected success. I received letters from all over the country, from people who found comfort in my words. But most important was the change in myself. I no longer feared death. I had experienced the love and peace that awaits us on the other side, and that gave me a new perspective on life. I learned to value every moment, to love more deeply, to forgive more easily. My near-death experience had taught me that love is the most powerful force in the universe. A love that transcends life and death, that connects us all in ways we can barely comprehend. As I sat on my porch one afternoon, watching the sunset with Lisa by my side, I felt deep gratitude. For life, for the second chance, for the purpose I had found. You know, Lisa? I said softly. I think I now understand why I came back. Lisa looked at me, curious. Why, Dad? I smiled, feeling a peace that emanated from the depths of my being. To remind the world that love never dies. That there's something beyond this life, something beautiful and full of peace. And that we're all connected by that love, no matter which side of the veil we're on. Lisa took my hand, her eyes bright with emotion. And you've done a wonderful job sharing that message, Dad. As the sun sank into the horizon, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, I felt a deep certainty. My journey wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. And each day was a new opportunity to share the message of love and hope that I had brought back with me from the other side.